The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. My name is Adrian Benjamins and I'm joined by Coach. And this episode is brought to you by Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. Taste the Kona difference. Head over to hawaiianisles.com and Amazon and get some delicious coffee. Coach, how are you doing, sir? Is your you got to be feeling much better than you were last week? How are you?
Yo, Adrian, how are you, my man? I am doing much better than last week. I didn't mention it, but we talked afterwards. It had a couple of wisdom teeth pulled, even at my old age, having these teeth yanked, and was able to try to mumble my way through last week. So hopefully our hoop ball listeners were able to understand everything I said, or if there was anything that wasn't right on the money, what I said, then I'll use that as an excuse if that works. How are you doing though, brother?
Well, I'm doing good. Coach, oddly enough, the biggest complaint about our show last week was audio issues that I was having on my side. So my audio issues, Coach, were so bad that nobody noticed that you had just had your wisdom teeth pulled and that you were bleeding. And, Coach, I thought I was going to do the heavy lifting on that show since you were coming in hobbled, and you still did most of the heavy lifting on that show. So kudos to you, man. You're a trooper, man. If I would have had my wisdom teeth pulled, I do not think I would have been recording a podcast. So my hat's off to you, sir.
I appreciate it, man. God willing, I plan on never missing a show. That's so far so good. So we'll keep on trooping.
All right. Well, as per usual, we usually check in on the NBA playoffs, and a lot has kind of gone down since last week. And Coach, I got to give you more props again. I believe you predicted the Bucks beating the Celtics in like a 4-1 type of a series, series, and you pretty much called it, man. After a close beginning, the Bucks pretty much ran away with it. Well, what do you think of that series?
Well, it was what I expected. I mean, Boston just does not seem to have any chemistry. They don't seem to have, Stevens is one of the best coaches in the league, but I don't think he's really got their ear. They're just, it looked like going in that it was going to be a runaway. And, generally, if you watch some of that internal stuff, that really plays itself out on the court a lot. And it did. I mean, Milwaukee's really good, and Boston is sort of a mess. And that's how it shook out. It's now the amazing thing is with this other series going 7, Milwaukee's going to get a full week's rest before they have to play the conference finals. So what a big advantage that's going to be. And I think we talked about that too, is, they may beat each other up in this other series and then be too battered to try to take on Milwaukee. And that's sort of the way it might be play out.
Yeah, really interesting that, the Bucks, they can kind of sit back a little bit here and rest and see how the other side shakes out. I kind of like the Bucks to go to the finals no matter who comes through on the other side of this series. But, speaking of, let's move over to that. I believe the Sixers did tie up this series here tonight, if I am not yes. So, we're looking at a game 7. I mean, this has been an outstanding series. It was one of the most exciting series that I was looking forward to just because of how evenly matched they were. Like, just a lot of firepower in every position. And man, I'm looking forward to this game 7. What do you think? I mean, I feel like we kind of got to give the edge to Toronto because they're at home. But what do you think, man? Do you see Toronto going through here, or do you think Philly can take this one? Who do you
Well,
got?
I mean, you know, I had at the beginning of the playoffs when we did that one show, I had picked Philly in 7 against Boston, and you know, but man, Philadelphia has been the most bizarre team to try to figure out. One game they look like they're really good, and the next game they look like they shouldn't have even made the playoffs. So, you know, I think it's completely up for grabs. How you predict that one, I have no idea. But it's funny because I'm frustrated with Philadelphia a little bit, even though they've pushed it to 7. And for me, it's about the coaching. And you know, I sort of unloaded on Twitter a little bit the other day, you know, with I just don't understand Brett Brown's strategy. And I know they won tonight and they're pushed to game 7. But a lot of that had to do with the fact that Toronto shot so poorly. But, you know, it's just, I don't understand what game plan he has going in. You know, he's not putting Embiid in the post. They're just really not doing what got them there. And I know Embiid's not 100%, but you know, it's just it's interesting to see because this whole series is just completely up for grabs. But the fact that it's at Toronto, like you said, you know, certainly gives them an edge. But I'm with you. I think whoever does come out of that game is in big trouble against Milwaukee. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not going to go off my, you know, I'll stick with my, you know, Golden State, Philadelphia finals prediction. If I go down, I'll go down in flames, but you know, it is what it is.
Well, I also want to take a look at the Western side of the playoffs, and we got to definitely talk about the Warriors and the Rockets and that game last night. Coach, I was very nervous when I saw Kevin Durant limp come up, which I thought for sure was an Achilles injury. The way that he reacted when he got hurt, how he looked when he was walking off the court, it did not look good. I am so happy and thankful that it's a calf strain and not an Achilles injury, but he is going to miss the final 2 games or game or 2 of this series. What are your predictions here? What do you think about the Warriors' chances without Kevin Durant?
Well, I mean, it changes everything completely for sure. But I'm with you. You know, when he went down the way he did or reacted the way he did, I thought it was an Achilles for sure. You know, that's almost identically the way Kobe did it, and you know, some other guys through the years. When you know, I remember when Wesley Matthews did his, and some different guys. That's usually the reaction. So that was great to hear. But as far as this series goes, I mean, you know, if Harden and the guys can step it up, I mean, there's no reason why they can't win these 2 games just like Golden State did last year when Paul went down. It's almost exact role reversal. So we'll see. I mean, you know, Curry and Thompson and Green, I mean, they're going to step it up. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. So, again, it's going to be fun to watch play out. I still wouldn't count Golden State out, though. You know, they're heart of the champions kind of stuff, you know, and so I would say it's a complete toss-up, but looking forward to watching it for sure.
Yeah, and you know, more than just the Warriors and this series, like Durant, the potential of him having an Achilles injury, I mean, it changes the landscape of fantasy, right? I mean, this is a guy that gets drafted in the top 3. It changes free agency, right? Like a lot of New York Knicks fans are excited about the possibility of Durant leaving to go to New York. I mean, it changes the landscape of the whole NBA if this guy has a serious injury like that. So to me, man, I was very nervous last night, and I just can't. I thought I would have bet. I would have bet everything that he definitely had an Achilles injury. So I'm just shocked that it was only a calf strain. But man, I do feel like it could have some big ramifications. I mean, he's arguably the best scorer in the NBA. So I do agree with you. I think the Warriors, they're definitely capable without him, but I think it definitely evens the playing field. Like instead of the Warriors having the edge or advantage, I mean, it feels like a coin flip here to me. I think Rockets going to take this game. I think the Warriors going to go back home, and I think they're going to squeak out a victory at home, get the win here. So, anyways, exciting stuff, man. I love it.
It is.
Can't wait to see how it goes down. One more series to talk about. Portland and Denver, they are playing right now as we speak. Denver's looked really good, man. I kind of feel like if they don't close it out here tonight, I think they'll get it in the next one. What do you think of Denver? And I think Denver would be a pretty interesting matchup with the Warriors. If the Warriors are missing Durant, let's say at the beginning of the series, I think Denver could maybe steal a game or two in the beginning of that series. What do you think about it?
Well, I think Denver getting past San Antonio in the first round gave them just a massive boost of confidence. And you could just see really that team mature as that series went on. So I'm with you. I mean, I haven't seen the score of tonight's game, but I do think Denver will probably pull out that series. I think they're the better team. And, I'm with you. I think that if Golden State does win, I think that the last team they wanted to face probably in the West was Denver, just simply because Jokic is such a tough matchup for them. How they're going to guard him and how that's, going to play out, because he's just such a difference maker from that center position, being able to pass that way. And, they run everything through him. And, it would make for a very interesting series. And if Houston somehow pulls it out, I think maybe they can match up actually a little bit better against Denver, because Capella's got a little bit more flexibility defensively, although he's not a defensive stopper by any means. But, I think it will be very competitive, though, especially, with Durant not knowing Durant's full recovery time. And I know, they think he may be back for the Western Finals, but I think it's still too early. If that calf injury is bothering him like that, he may not come back. Who knows? So, it should be, again, it's up right now. Everything is just continued to trend towards Milwaukee is just really looking like the team to beat. I mean, they are peaking. They're healthy. Brogdon's back. They've got all the momentum. They have home court throughout the playoffs. So I'll tell you right now, I would not bet against Milwaukee in any stretch against all these other teams. Everybody's got injuries and problems and et cetera, and Milwaukee's just coasting. So I'm excited for them. I mean, they're a very likable team. I think Coach Bud is awesome. He's going to get Coach of the Year probably. And, they haven't been in a final since 1974. Is that correct, I believe?
Think you're right.
And so It's like, good Lord. I mean, it's amazing that, they've had that much of a drought. So it's hard not to root for them. And I think they're definitely in the driver's seat, don't you think?
Yeah, yes, for sure. Definitely. One other thing that I want to talk to you about, Coach, is a lot of news over here. I'm in California, all over sports radio, all over the news. It's all dysfunctional Laker talk. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts, as a coach. It seemed really just kind of disrespectful that they offered Tyronn Lue a 3-year deal when all these other coaches are getting 5-year deals. They wanted to choose his staff, putting guys like Jason Kidd on his staff, which didn't really, I mean, you hire a guy like Tyronn Lue who's won championships before, you let him pick his staff. He should be getting a 5-year deal like Monty Williams just did in Phoenix, like Luke Walton just did in Sacramento. I gotta say, man, it is really, as a Laker fan, it is really embarrassing to see what's going on right now over there. What are your thoughts on that situation?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, it's a disaster, and the Lakers fan base is one of the best, and they're used to such tremendous success. It's got to be frustrating, but I was listening to something today that really was summed up, I think, why this situation is happening. Is you're having a lot of franchises like the Knicks, the Lakers, the Suns, all kinds of different franchises, and not just in basketball, where the New York Yankees with the Steinbrenners, where the second generation has now taken over, like Jenny Buss with the Lakers. And this second generation group is just not handling things the way that their parents did. And basically almost every one of them, where it's the generation that took over for their parents that were very successful, they're all crashing and burning and just not having anywhere near the success. So, I'm sure you could read into that a little bit and see, why that's the trend. But, ever since Jerry Buss passed, it's been just a shit show there. You can't say it any other way, because they just don't know what they're doing. They keep shooting themselves in the foot. They keep embarrassing themselves. And now, this whole Tyronn Lue thing with LeBron was involved, and that's blown up on them. And now they're I saw who they were talking about interviewing now, and it's Frank Vogel. And I thought, oh my God, what? It's amazing. So it's a shame. I'm not a Laker fan, so I'm not sweating it. I just, as an NBA enthusiast and just a fan and appreciation of LeBron James' gift that he's brought to the game, I just would hate to see him spend his last couple of years in this nightmare and just wasting away, because it's a disaster. And they, I don't know how they're going to attract an Anthony Davis with all of this, garbage going on. Who wants to go into that,
Yeah, and I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head right there. It's like the biggest thing for the Lakers is to attract an elite free agent this summer. And just as you said, man, I mean, who would want to come over into a situation like this? And, it's just, it's very scary, because you got a Pelinka running things over there with zero experience. I mean, he was an agent, and Magic stepping down. They haven't replaced him. It doesn't look like they're going to replace him. There's rumors that Kurt Rambis and his wife are making decisions, which is kind of strange. So, as a Laker fan, the Laker fan base, we're panicking right now. It's a really short time frame with LeBron, and it has not gone well. It doesn't look like it's heading in the right direction, which is really scary. So it is very dark days right now for Laker fans. But anyways, interesting to hear your thoughts on the subject, Coach. Thank you for that. Coach, before we move on to other things, you got any just closing thoughts on the playoffs, or just kind of any general news or notes that you can think of that we should talk about before moving on here?
Well, I think it's a good time for our hoop baller owners to really pay attention to what's going on in the game. I know it's playoff time, and everybody gets into everybody making a run for the championship, but keep an eye out on all the stuff that's going on, because you can really read into and start scouting for next year. I mean, you can, for example, I'll give one example. Kyrie Irving. If you think he's going to be back with the Celtics, you're dreaming. So you got to start thinking, where's he going to go? How's that going to shake things up? I'm excited because I have Terry Rozier in my keeper leagues, and I think he'll be a 35-minute a night solid point guard once he literally has that role under his belt. So, just keep watching all that stuff, because there's definitely going to be some residual effects. Another one is Middleton. I know the word here in Dallas is they're going to pull out all the stops to try to get him with the Mavericks. They think he'll be a perfect fit. He's a Texas A&M guy, so he's got some roots here. And, so it's interesting to see how all of those things play out. And then on the 15th, which is, just a week away, we've got the NBA lottery. So we'll have that to talk about soon, which again, those you can start seeing some of the landscape and start figuring out how you want to rank people. I know, some of them are throwing some early rankings out there, and I know we're going to touch on that a little bit because, it's sort of a time where you can make some mental notes and jot some stuff down to get you in position to not have any surprises next year when the time comes around to prepare for the draft. Because really, once you're within that month of the draft, everybody's looking at the same materials and rankings and scouting. But if you have an edge from, following it before and notating it and doing some things with your keeper leagues and, preparing for expansion drafts and things like that, it's going to give you a good advantage going forward.
Man, a lot of good stuff there, Coach. I love the draft lottery time in the NBA. I am excited for next week to see who wins the Zion sweepstakes, and also just to see the order of the draft. I start diving really deep into the rookie prospects, the incoming guys. Right after that, right after the draft lottery, I start going deep into that stuff. So I am really excited for that, man. We are definitely going to have a lot to talk about on the next show, especially the results of that. Coach, you had mentioned we are going to touch into, ESPN has released a way too early ranking list for next season, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. And, Coach, I kind of talked to you about it briefly before we went on, and I saw some really strange stuff, but I realized just now I was looking at a points league list. So I switched over to their Roto style list, which I think so. And the list kind of looked a little bit better, but I still see some strange things going on. So we probably got time to go over the first round here. If if the listeners like it, if you like doing this, maybe we can get deeper into this list on some future shows. So, Coach, if you don't mind, I want to go over this first round with you. Get your thoughts. What do you think?
I think that sounds great, and it starts allowing us to do a little pre-scouting, and then next week, when the lottery's already been determined, it'll have a little bit more teeth to it. So yeah, let's do it. I think that hopefully the Hoopball listeners will enjoy some initial talk here, and it gets them thinking. All
right, so let's go 3 picks at a time. Let's start with the first 3. First guy on the board is James Harden. Giannis Antetokounmpo, number 2. And Anthony Davis is number 3. Now, personally, I do not have a problem with these guys, except Giannis at number 2 feels a little bit too early for me. This is a guy, I believe, finished as the number 7 player in 9 category leagues. So, taking him with the number 2 overall pick, for him to make that leap, he would really need to add that 3-point shot to his game. Like, he would need to add something to his game. Coach had arguably the best season of his career finished. I mean, he's likely going to win the MVP or be runner-up MVP this season. So, you can't imagine him having that much better of a year like he had this year and finished as the number 7 player. So I feel like it's kind of a reach to take him at number 2. Now, I can't argue with Harden at number 1. He did finish as the number one player. Anthony Davis would have finished as the number one player if he did not deal with him wanting to leave the Pelicans and them basically sitting him to end the season. That really tanked his value to finish his season. Coach, what are your thoughts on the top three players here?
Well, I don't think you can argue with Harden at number one. He's just a fantasy monster. I mean, numbers that we've never seen before, 40-point triple doubles and everything else. So I think if you're fortunate enough to grab the number one pick, regardless of what happens in the draft and in the free agents and off season, Harden's just an automatic. I have a tendency to agree with you. I know Giannis is just now peaking and just starting to get into the heart of his career. I don't think it's arguable that definitely this was his best year. He's taken it to the superstar MVP level. But, there are two things I think you have to factor in here is, without question, his three-point shooting is definitely an issue. And, determining whether he's going to improve that, which I would assume that he will. I mean, that's his number one thing he's got to work on, and he knows that. But the second thing is really what the structure of the Bucks look like after free agency, because I would have a tendency to keep Giannis in that 2 spot if Middleton does leave and he becomes more usage dependent. I think in that sense, it's worth the risk on that 3-point percentage to keep him in that 2 spot. Now, if Milwaukee does bring everybody back and they've got the full group of Bledsoe and Middleton and Brogdon and everyone, I believe on my board, I would have Davis in the 2 spot just because, I know he's been out and everything else, and we're not sure where he's going to land for sure, but regardless of where he lands, if it's back with the Pelicans or Lakers or wherever he goes, he's not going to be on a minutes restriction. There's all that baloney's going to go away, and he's going to be back to the 60 fantasy point a night guys with just filling in all the categories. So I would say, let's see what happens with the Bucks. I think those are the top 3 guys. I agree with you there. But I think, you got to wait to determine Giannis and who am I'm drawing a blank. Giannis and
Harden and Davis.
And Davis. I'm thinking ahead. But, yeah, Davis has been so out of sight, out of mind, I can't even but AD, AD and Giannis may flip-flop. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I definitely do believe there will be a day where we're drafting Giannis as the number one overall player. Like I said, if he added that 3-point shot to his game, I mean, he would be complete. I mean, he blocks, he does it all. Good rebounder, good passer. I mean, it's just that one thing missing from his game that's keeping him from being the best player in fantasy. And, I love Giannis. If you wanted to take him that high, I mean, I can't blame you. But it does kind of feel like, if I had to bet money, I would bet him not finishing as the number 2 player. I'd probably put him more like in that 5 or 4 range. I like you, Coach, in my rankings. I'll probably have him just outside that top 3. Or just outside Harden and Anthony Davis. I think those are your clear number 1 and 2 there. But anyways, Coach, let's move on to the next 3.
Let me just add one thing, because I wanted to mention this so that we can remember when we talked about this when the draft time comes up. I think what you're going to find is a lot of people are going to take Giannis number 1 overall. That's my early prediction of, I think everyone sees him reaching his peak and that he's going to blow through everybody else, and you watch and see he'll be close to being the number 1 pick in a lot of drafts.
What's really interesting about what you just said in your prediction there too is a lot of times what happens in the postseason really skews what people think coming into fantasy next year. Coach, you had just talked about how much you love the Bucks, how they look like they're on cruise control. Let's say they get into the finals. Let's say they win the championship this year. How about if Giannis is the finals MVP? I mean, people are just going to have this really inflated idea of him. And so, absolutely, man, coming into drafts next season, people might be like, hey, this is the best guy in the NBA, which reality wise, he might be. So, I agree with you, man. It would not be surprising to see this guy going into drafts being at the very top of rankings coming into the year next year. Anyways, coach, let's move on to the next three. Kevin Durant comes in at number 4, Joel Embiid at number 5, and Karl Anthony Towns at number 6. And coach, I have no problem with Durant. I have no problem with Karl Anthony Towns. That's exactly where I'd have him. But you and I have said on previous shows that we would probably avoid taking Joel Embiid in the first round due to his injury concern. And coach, the postseason has not eased my mind on how I feel about Joel Embiid's health. The last game, not the game today, the game before, the Sixers really struggled. Now, Embiid was dealing with, I believe he was ill and he needed IV. So it wasn't really like a knee or a leg issue. It was more like he was sick and dealing with illness. But you kind of get an idea of his importance to this Philly team and how much they need him to play well to win. But anyways, coach, you and I talked about it. Don't really like taking that risk so early in the draft, especially when you could take a for sure stud without the injury risk. What do you think of this next 3 players, Durant, Embiid, and Karl Anthony Towns?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, I'd have KD probably 4th or maybe even 3rd, depending on how things play out. But, if KD stays, he's phenomenal. If he goes somewhere else like the Knicks, where his usage is going to go up and they're going to need more out of him, I think that, he may even slide up a spot, so KD's a no-brainer, especially now, thank goodness that he's not injured badly. I think Cat, he's just getting into his prime. He showed some phenomenal games, now that Butler left and Thibodeau left, and he's got a coach in there that they did re-sign for this year, and he's going to be 100% the centerpiece. I don't think you can go wrong with taking him in the top 4 or 5. I think that's a great pick. I'd love for him, to fall in my lap. He'd be a fun guy to root for, and he never ever misses games. I think he's missed 1 game in 5 years or something. So you got to love him. I'm with you though. I personally, I like the Sixers. I really like Embiid, but I would not take him in the first round, anywhere in the first round. I just think there's always going to be that issue of load management. There's always going to be that shadowing of injury. And, just guys his size with injury issues like that, they're going to have times where they're strong. But overall, if you're anchoring your entire team on him, that's a monster risk that personally I'm not willing to take. Now, if for some reason everybody feels that way and he falls to the beginning of the second round, then yeah, you got to go after it. But somebody will pull the trigger on him in most leagues in the first round, but it's not going to be me.
Coach, we are too much alike. I mean, you are just basically taking the words out of my mouth right there. And let's move on to the next set of guys. Coming in at number 7 is Paul George. Number 8 is Stephen Curry. And number 9, Nikola Jokic. Now, Paul George, outstanding season, exceeded my expectations. I think, reality-wise, right after Harden and Giannis, Paul George will finish as the number 3 guy in voting for MVP, I believe. Now, Coach, one really interesting thing about Paul George, he underwent surgery on his shoulder did not look right in the postseason. It was clear that he was dealing with some kind of injury because the shooting looked bad. He just did not look right. Now, word is that he's not going to be ready for the start of training camp, which is concerning to me. So, we just talked about the injury, not, avoiding the injury risk, especially so early in fantasy drafts. So I want to get your thoughts on Paul George here. Does his shoulder surgery, do you think that comes into play? Do you think number 7 is okay for him? And then Stephen Curry, I think, is great. This is a guy at number 8 who could easily finish, as the number 1 player in fantasy. Just a short time ago, he was the number 1 player in fantasy. So feels like somewhat of a value to get him at pick 8. Now, he himself also comes with injury concern with his extensive ankle problems. But I love the idea, especially if Kevin Durant is out of town, of his usage going up. And again, it just feels like a value right there at 8. Jokic at number 9, I think that sounds awesome, man. I would believe he'll finish somewhere like in that 5-6 range. So to get him at number 9, we talked earlier in the show how special he is, how great. I love getting those dimes from your center. That's amazing. What do you think of these 3 guys, Coach?
Well, I think Jokic is by far the best of that group. Personally, I'd have him 4 or 5 on my board. Just, you got a triple-double guy at center that's just doing things that have never been done. I saw a stat today where he moved into second for centers all-time triple-doubles. All he's got to catch now is Wilt Chamberlain, which he's got like 52 to catch him, but it goes to show you what he's accomplished sort of under the radar. People don't realize, I don't think, what a dominant player he is. So I definitely am completely on the Jokic bandwagon as far as a really solid pick. I'd take him ahead of Embiid in a half a second in my leagues. Paul George, I think the shoulder injury is a concern. He's not as young as he was. Shoulder surgeries are always the toughest. Whenever I had players go down, you always think, well, the knee and ankle, this and that are the worst to come back from. But some of the toughest comebacks I had for some of my guys were shoulder surgeries because they're so complex. There's more nerves and issues that can take a lot more time to rehab, from that side. So I don't know. George had a great year. I know Westbrook had his knee cleaned out the same day George had his shoulder. They both had the surgery the same day. So I don't know. The jury is out for me on both Westbrook and George and where to take them in the first round. I think they're both first round guys, but I have to hear more about how they're rehabbing and what's going on to determine, where I would really want to pick them. And who's the third guy again?
Stephen Curry.
Okay. Well, this is where we differ a little bit. Yeah. And I couldn't be more of a fan than Curry. I think he's like one of the nicest and best ambassadors for basketball we've ever had. I just feel like I've seen this last couple months, especially in the playoffs, where I think all of those ankle injuries and all of the usage, all of just, going 150 miles an hour all the time. And I just think it's catching up to him. So I feel like that there's going to be a regression in his stats. Even if Durant does leave, I think that you'll see him sort of, giving the ball more to Thompson and whoever else they pick up or whatever big guy they get. I will not have, as of right now, and I know it sounds crazy, but I would move Curry actually out of my first round. And wow. I know it sounds really crazy, but it just screams to me as a regression, load management, missing some games. I don't have a good gut feeling for him physically. And I think, as a first guy that you're anchoring your team around, it just seems very risky to me.
All right. Well, I mean,
Tough take, but
I like it. I definitely understand the injury concern. And we've seen him have some problems with the ankle even this season. So definitely scary with what we've seen and what he's gone through. Anytime anything happens to that ankle, I hold my breath because it feels like he's just ankle turn away from missing a major amount of games. So I completely understand that. All right, let's move to the very last three guys here to finish off the first round. And Coach, this one I got some problems here with these guys. LeBron James at number 10, Russell Westbrook at number 11, and Damian Lillard to end the first round at number 12. Coach, I don't understand how you could take LeBron James at number 10. He got shut down at the end of this season, ended up finishing as a 6th round value in 9 category leagues. Coach, I don't think much is going to change next year. I think the Lakers are kind of going to be in the same spot they were this year. They're going to struggle to make the playoffs. There might be another point in the season where it's a lost season. They don't want to put more wear and tear on LeBron. They shut him down, let's say, for the last 6 weeks or the last 5 or 6 weeks to end the season. I see kind of a similar situation like that. I don't understand how you could take this guy at number 10. So I have a major problem with that. It's kind of same goes for Russell Westbrook. He himself is having surgery for an injury issue. So dealing with that as well. He's had numerous he's got pretty extensive injury history himself. Coach, he finished, I believe, as a 4th round value due to his deficiencies in turnovers, bad free throw percentage, bad field goal percentage. I don't understand how you can take this guy at pick 11. Now, Damian Lillard, I feel the opposite about. I feel like this guy is a value at number 12. I'm pulling up the rankings right here so I can see it. Coach, Damian Lillard finished as the number 5 overall player in fantasy. So if I will be jumping for joy if I'm the last pick of the first round, pick 12, and he is sitting right there, I will be a very happy fantasy owner if he's right there. Coach, what are your thoughts on these 3 guys?
Well, I think you're right on the money, man. I hate to say it, but LeBron's situation with the Lakers is just so in flux. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen, and it's really a shame to see if his career ends like this. But just too volatile. His age is really getting up there. It's just a concern to me. I would not risk that either. I mean, again, if you're in the beginning of the second round and LeBron's there, I think you got to take him because, obviously the upside. But, I just don't want to anchor my team to him at this point with everything that's going on there. And his age, I mean, he's getting up there. Westbrook, he's a great guy for DFS because if you hit him on the right night, he'll get you 95 fantasy points. But as far as the, rotisserie and the leagues, even the head-to-head leagues, you hit that right on the nose. I mean, his free throw percentage went way down. His field goal percentage was horrific at times, and he's still up there in the tops in turnovers. So, he can obviously, get a million triple doubles and help you in those areas. But to take a first round guy that's going to hurt you in 3 categories on a lot of time is a lot of a reach. So, the one thing that this does bring up is there's a lot of changing of the guard here. I mean, the fact that, we're having this conversation and, for me right now, I'm looking at in the second round, Curry, LeBron, and all these guys that were always like the number 1 pick. It's a changing of the guard. There's, you got people that have just blown by him, Giannis and Jokic and all these guys, and Kat are now the guys. So this is going to be a pivotal year, and it's great that we're having these conversations now because it gets your mind working and thinking because what happens in these drafts a lot of times is people just, they get there and they're thinking, oh my God, it's Steph Curry. Oh my God, it's LeBron James. I can't let him go. And, I'm going to take him. And, that's not how you win these leagues. You gotta predict the guys that are on the rise and the guys that are regressing. And, of course, some of it's luck if guys get hurt or not, but sometimes you can move that luck in your favor. Like the example I stated with Curry. I mean, that's my take on him. And, I think that you got to weigh that with a guy that's up and coming, like a Cat, that's consistent and really going to be their main usage guy. So, yeah, this is a great discussion. I think this is something hopefully our listeners are enjoying. And I think we keep breaking this down, go through, 4 or 5 rounds, just go around at a time each week and start factoring in the pieces of as, the lottery picks are coming out. We can sort of, guesstimate who's going to go where. And then, then you'll start hearing as soon as different teams get eliminated, like, I think once Golden State does get eliminated or wins it, then you'll hear the Durant to Knicks thing really come out. And so we can start, giving a little more weight there, but, things to start looking at. And I think it's great that I'm glad that ESPN has at least come out with that to start these discussions for people to look to for next year.
Yeah, I would love to go through this list further on future shows, Coach. So much to talk about just looking ahead. Where did guys like Luka Doncic end up on this list? And, we've talked about question marks, as you mentioned, with Durant and with Kyrie Irving. Where do those guys end up on this list? So a lot to talk about, and I think it would be a lot of fun. We got some downtime here in the off season. I think it's good food for thought here. It's just really intriguing stuff. I love your take on the whole changing of the guard. It's one of the reasons why I love fantasy basketball so much and why it never gets old is because it is so fluid. It's constantly changing. It's like a puzzle that you're putting together, but the pieces never end because you've got all these incoming guys, you've got outcoming guys getting old, guys coming up, and it's just trying to figure it all out. Every year, it's just new and it's fresh every single time. And it's one of the things that makes fantasy basketball so fun. So love your take, Coach. Love talking to you about this stuff too, man. I can't wait to dig deeper in this stuff. Coach, that was a full show, man. We've been talking. I feel like I just started talking to you. We've been going over 45 minutes. Let's put a bow on this thing, man. Where can the listeners reach you at?
On Twitter at Joe Sarvadi. That's JoeSarvadi, and certainly jump on our Hoopball forums. I'm on there quite a bit. Do a lot of stuff on the, even now that the playoffs are going on, just going through stuff with everybody and answering questions. So certainly find me on those. I do want to mention one thing, and I'll turn it back over to you though, is. And, I get on my soapbox a little bit about this almost every week right now because I love the fact that everybody thinks, okay, this is, and you mentioned it too, and everybody does, and I'm not being critical of it, but everybody says, well, this is the downtime in the NBA, or this is going to be the off season, or this is going to be, I'll tell you what, if champions are made in leagues and in real basketball and in fantasy basketball in these next 3 months, because you have to be talking it, thinking it, watching the draft, watching the free agents, watching the reports, checking out the preseason. I mean, if you really want to have an edge and you want to be a champion, you've got to stay with it throughout the year. And the NBA does such a fantastic job marketing. They're always right in your face with playoffs, draft lottery, drafts, free agents, award shows. They've got everything going, so there's no off season. So I want to change our listeners' thinking and make it a no-no to say off season or downtime or anything like that, because if you love the game, you love hoops, we're going to keep talking it, thinking it, dissecting it, and that's how you're going to win championships. And that's the way it works. real or fantasy, brother. So I'm with you, man.
I love it, man. I love it. Coach, you and I, we are too much alike, man. It is crazy. All right, you guys. Hey, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Adrian Benjamins. We want to hear from you listeners. What do you guys think? Send us your questions. We love to end the show answering your guys' questions. So send us questions. And Coach, as you mentioned, next week, draft lottery. It is on Thursday. I believe by the time we record the show, which is about 8 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, I believe we will know by then what the draft lottery order is.
It's actually on Wednesday. Wednesday the 15th.
Is it on Wednesday? Okay.
And our show's the 16th, so we'll be ready to roll, man. We can make that our feature. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So next week, we're definitely going to have some thoughts on the draft lottery. Probably we'll check into the playoffs, and by then, we're going to know who are these final teams here that we got left. So I have a feeling there's going to be more news as far as who knows, man. So I guarantee there will be no shortage of stuff to talk about on the next show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Stick with us, you guys. We appreciate you listening and supporting the show. We will be back next week. Thank you guys so much.
Good night.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.